Okay, so picture this. You're at this huge event in India called the Maha with millions of people all on this, like, deeply spiritual journey.
Yeah, it's a massive gathering.
And obviously, with so many people, there's a real need for basic things, right?
Yeah.
Like places to rest and just kind of recharge.
Makes sense.
So what if I told you that Amazon decided to step in and help out? And their solution involved something that you probably use every day, cardboard boxes.
That's what we're diving into today.
Sounds a little out there.
It does.
So tell me more about this.
Well, this article that we're looking at from the Indian Express talks about how Amazon India took their delivery boxes and turned them into beds for the people attending the Kumbh Mela.
Wow.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah, so we're going to unpack like the why and the how they actually did this, what the impact was, and what it tells us about kind of creative problem solving, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You're at this huge gathering, and Amazon's giving out beds made from cardboard boxes.
It is a little strange when you first hear about it.
Yeah, it does sound kind of strange.
Yeah.
What made them think of this?
Well, think about the logistics of an event of this scale.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking over 85 million people already there.
Wow.
And they're expecting hundreds of millions more to show up.
Oh, my goodness.
So you can imagine just providing basic amenities like comfortable places to rest.
Yeah,
That becomes a huge challenge.
especially when people are traveling from all over just to take part in those ritual bathings in the Ganges River.
Exactly.
It's like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Amazon saw a problem. They thought, hey, we've got tons of these cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Let's put them to good use.
And that's exactly what they did.
But did they just like slap some boxes together and say, here's your bed?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That's what's so fascinating about this. They actually put a lot of thought into it.
Really?
According to the article, these beds were designed to be durable.
Okay.
You know, they had to be able to withstand the environment, and they even wanted to provide a level of comfort.
Interesting. So it wasn't just like a PR stunt or anything.
No, definitely not.
They were trying to make a real difference.
It seems like it.
Do we know anything about the actual design process?
Well, unfortunately, the article doesn't go into a ton of detail about like the specifics of how they made the beds.
Okay.
But you can imagine there had to be some clever engineering involved
Yeah.
to make sure these cardboard beds could actually hold up in that kind of environment.
Yeah, think about India's climate. It can be pretty intense.
Exactly.
And then you've got all these people using them. It'd be a real test for any design.
For sure. It makes you wonder what type of cardboard they even use.
Right. Was it like specially treated or something?
Yeah, maybe to make it more resistant to moisture or wear and tear.
You'd need something pretty strong to handle all that.
You would. I think it would be really interesting to learn more about that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of speaks to the level of innovation.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, we're repurposing some materials. There's a lot of thought behind it.
Absolutely. They really wanted to make sure these beds were functional.
Right.
And that they would actually benefit the people using them.
So it makes you wonder what kind of challenges they had to overcome during the design process.
Yeah, sure.
Like, did they consult with any experts in materials or structural engineering?
Probably.
Adds another layer to this whole thing.
It really does. And I think it also suggests that they were taking a strategic approach to engaging with the community.
Okay, so.
They weren't just trying to generate headlines, you know?
Right.
It seems like they genuinely wanted to create something that would benefit the attendees.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we know they put a lot of thought into the design, but what about the people who actually used the beds?
Right.
Did it actually make a difference for them?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting because the article actually includes some firsthand accounts for people who used the beds.
Oh, perfect. Let's hear about those.
Okay, so there's a quote from the matron of the Central Hospital at the Kumbh Mela, and she talks about how comfortable the beds were, especially for the people who needed care.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
You know, when you're in a crowded and potentially overwhelming environment like that,
Yeah,
having a comfy place to rest can make a world of difference.
absolutely. So she was quoted as saying, "Everyone is at peace, lying comfortably in the cool environment. What more could one ask for? I express my gratitude to Amazon for making these arrangements."
Wow, it sounds like those beds were really a welcome relief for anyone feeling unwell or just exhausted.
Yeah, it really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing how something as simple as a cardboard bed can have such a big impact.
It
It's
is.
like it humanizes this whole initiative.
Totally. And there's another quote from the chief pharmacist, Om Prakash Mishra,
Okay.
and he was also really touched by Amazon's gesture.
What did he say?
Well, he praised how practical the beds were, and he even offered blessings to Amazon and its employees.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
It is.
You can tell this really resonated with the people.
Yeah.
It wasn't just seen as some corporate handout. It
Yeah.
was like a genuine act of caring.
Exactly. And it's interesting, if you look at the name of the initiative itself,
Okay.
it's called Amazon Dibbins C Bodkar.
What does that mean?
It translates to more than just boxes.
Oh, I see.
So they're kind of acknowledging the dual nature of these cardboard boxes.
Right.
They represent Amazon's services, but they also have the potential to go beyond their intended purpose.
That's a clever way to frame it.
It is.
They're basically saying, we're not just a delivery company. We care about the communities we serve.
Yeah, exactly.
Subtle, but very effective.
And this message is further emphasized by Pragya Sharma.
Okay.
She's the director of marketing at Amazon India,
Okay.
and she's quoted in the article talking about their commitment to both innovation and impacting communities.
Right.
So it's not just talk. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is.
But what happens to the beds after the Kumbh is over?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Are they just going to end up in a landfill?
Thankfully, they thought about that too.
Okay.
The article says that any unusable beds will be discarded responsibly.
Yeah.
And any usable ones will be donated to local NGOs.
That's great to hear.
It is. It shows that they're thinking about the entire life cycle of these beds.
Right. From creation to disposal.
Exactly.
But it also brings up another question, doesn't it?
What's that?
What does responsible disposal actually look like in this context?
Good point.
We're talking about a massive number of beds here.
Yeah, even with donations, there's bound to be a lot of waste generated.
So it's not just about the feel-good factor of providing the beds.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the potential environmental impact
Yeah,
and taking steps to minimize it.
exactly. And that's where the details become really important.
Like what?
Well, for example, what kind of cardboard did they use?
Okay.
Is it easily recyclable?
Hmm.
Did they partner with any local recycling facilities to ensure it's handled properly?
Those are all great questions.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know how they addressed those logistical challenges.
Yeah, definitely. It adds another layer of complexity to this whole initiative.
It does. And I think it also highlights the importance of transparency when it comes to corporate social responsibility.
How so?
Well, if you're going to say that you're committed to sustainability,
Right.
you need to be willing to show people how you're actually following through on those claims.
I agree
Yeah.
completely. It's not enough to just make these big gestures.
Yeah.
You have to back them up with concrete actions.
Yeah.
And be open about the challenges that you face along the way.
Absolutely. It's about accountability.
Exactly.
Right.
Which brings us to a broader point.
Mm-hmm.
What does this initiative tell us about the role of businesses in society?
That is a big question.
It is, but I think it's worth exploring. Because at the end of the day, Amazon isn't a charity. They're a for-profit company.
Exactly.
So what's the motivation behind this seemingly altruistic act?
Well, it's certainly not just about being nice.
No.
There's definitely a strategic element at play here.
So it's good for business to be seen as doing good?
I mean, in a way, yes, but it's more nuanced than that.
Okay, explain.
By providing these beds, Amazon is inserting themselves into this major cultural event. They're connecting with millions of people on a personal level.
And those people are potential customers.
Exactly. But it's not just about immediate sales.
Right.
It's about building brand loyalty and a positive reputation.
Gotcha.
When people see a company going above and beyond to help others, it creates this sense of trust and goodwill.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we're not just here to take your money, we're part of your community.
Exactly. And that resonates with people, especially in a world where there's a growing distrust of large corporations.
So this initiative is as much about marketing and brand building as it is about providing a practical solution.
I think so. But it's important to remember that those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
True.
A well-executed CSR initiative can benefit both the community and the company.
Like a win-win.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this story so interesting.
In what way?
Well, it challenges our traditional ideas about corporate social responsibility.
Right.
It's not just about writing a check to a charity or sponsoring a local event.
Right.
It's about finding creative ways to leverage your resources and your expertise to address real-world problems.
And in this case, the problem is a lack of comfortable resting spaces at a massive religious gathering.
Exactly. Not exactly the kind of challenge you'd typically associate with Amazon, right?
Not at all. It's pretty innovative.
It is. They're thinking outside the box, literally.
Nice.
And finding ways to apply their strengths to unexpected situations.
It makes you wonder what other seemingly ordinary objects or resources companies could repurpose to make a positive impact.
That's a great question. I mean, what if other companies with large distribution networks like furniture retailers or electronics manufacturers followed suit.
Well, yeah, what if?
Could they find creative ways to utilize their packaging or even their unsold products to address community needs?
That's a really interesting thought. The article talks about Amazon's commitment to innovation,
Yeah.
but I think this initiative showcases a different kind of innovation, don't you think?
How so?
It's not about developing cutting-edge technology.
Right.
It's about finding a simple but effective solution to a real-world problem.
Absolutely. It's about resourcefulness and adaptability.
Exactly.
It's about seeing potential where others might only see waste.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding that sometimes the most impactful solutions are also the most straightforward.
So what does this all mean for our listeners?
Good question.
Why should they care about Amazon turning boxes into bags at a festival thousands of miles away?
Well, I think it challenges us to think differently about the role of businesses in society.
Okay.
It shows us that companies can be agents of positive change even while pursuing profit. And it encourages us to look for creative solutions to the challenges we face in our own communities.
It's pretty inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
It shows that even small acts can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
And it reminds us that we all have a role to play in making the world a better place.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll explore some of the broader implications of this initiative
Sounds good.
and what it might mean for the future of corporate social responsibility.
I'm looking forward to it.
So we were talking about what happens to all those beds after the Kumbh ends.
Right. Because it would
Yeah.
be a shame if they just ended up as trash after all that effort.
Absolutely. And it seems like Amazon was thinking the same thing.
Okay, good.
The article mentions that they plan to discard any unusable beds responsibly,
Okay.
and any beds that are still in good shape will be donated to local NGOs.
That's fantastic to hear.
It is. It really shows they're thinking about the whole picture.
Right, not just a one-time thing.
Exactly.
Right.
They're considering the entire life cycle of these beds from start to finish.
But it also raises another question, doesn't it?
What's that?
What exactly does responsible disposal look like in this situation?
That's a really good point.
We are talking about a huge number of beds.
We are, even with donations, there's still going to be a considerable amount of waste.
Right, so it's not just about the warm and fuzzy feeling of providing these beds.
No.
It's also about acknowledging the potential environmental impact and doing something about it.
Exactly, and that's where the details become really crucial.
Like what kind of details?
Well, for instance, what type of cardboard did they use for these beds? Is it the kind that can be easily recycled?
That's a good question.
And did they team up with any local recycling facilities?
Yeah, to make sure everything is handled properly.
Exactly. Those are all really important factors to consider.
It would be interesting to dig a little deeper and see how Amazon tackled those logistical challenges.
It would, and I think it highlights something else, too.
What's that?
The need for transparency when companies talk about corporate social responsibility.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
If a company is going to promote its commitment to sustainability,
Yeah,
then they need to be willing to show how they're actually putting those words into action.
I completely agree. It
Yeah.
can't just be empty promises.
Right.
They need to show concrete actions and be upfront about the challenges they face.
Absolutely. It all comes down to accountability.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And this leads us to a bigger question about the role of businesses in society today.
It's a big one for sure.
It is. But I think it's worth discussing because, after all, Amazon is a for-profit company.
Right, not a charity.
So what's the real motivation behind this seemingly altruistic act?
Well, it's probably not as simple as just wanting to be nice.
Okay.
There's almost certainly a strategic element involved.
So are you saying it's good for business to be seen as doing good deeds?
In a way, yes, but it's more complicated than that.
Help me understand.
By providing these beds, Amazon is essentially inserting themselves into this massive cultural event,
Nice.
and they're connecting with millions of people in a very personal way.
And a lot of those people could become customers down the line.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just immediate sales.
So what else is there?
It's about building brand loyalty and cultivating a positive image for the company.
I can see that.
When people see a company making a genuine effort to help others, it builds trust and goodwill.
Right. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just here to make a profit. We're part of this community.
Precisely. And that kind of message really resonates with people, especially these days when there's a lot of distrust towards big corporations.
So it sounds like this initiative is as much about marketing and branding as it is about actually helping people.
I think that's a fair assessment. But it's important to remember that those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Good point.
A well-executed corporate social responsibility initiative can genuinely benefit both the community and the company itself.
It's a win-win.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the things that makes this whole story so fascinating.
Why do you say that?
It challenges our preconceived notions about what corporate social responsibility should look like.
Okay.
It's not just about donating money or sponsoring events anymore. It's about finding innovative ways to use your resources and expertise to make a real difference in the world.
And in this case, the problem they're addressing is a lack of comfy resting spots at a giant religious festival.
Not exactly the kind of thing you'd normally associate with Amazon.
It's definitely a unique approach.
It is. They're thinking outside the box in a very literal sense,
I get it.
and they're finding ways to apply their strengths to unexpected situations.
It really makes you think about what other everyday objects or resources companies could utilize to do some good in the world.
That's a great question. What if we saw furniture companies donating slightly damaged goods to homeless shelters?
Interesting.
Or tech companies repurposing old computers to support educational programs?
The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They are. And it doesn't have to be limited to just physical resources either.
I see what you're saying.
Companies can also leverage their expertise, their networks, their platforms to support social causes in all sorts of ways.
It's about looking beyond the obvious and finding those creative opportunities to make a difference.
Exactly. And that brings us back to you, the listener.
Okay.
Think about your own community for a moment. What are some of the issues or unmet needs you see around you?
And what unique skills or resources do you have that could potentially help address those needs?
Maybe you're great at organizing things, or you're a whiz in the garden, or you have a knack for technology.
Yeah.
Could you use those skills to benefit your community in some way?
This story isn't just about Amazon and cardboard boxes.
No, it's not.
It's about prompting a broader conversation about how we can all be more creative and resourceful when it comes to social impact.
It's about recognizing that everyone has something to contribute, regardless of how big or small it might seem.
And realizing that sometimes the most effective solutions are right in front of us, just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly.
We've been talking about these cardboard beds at the Kumbh, and you might be thinking, okay, cool story, but what does this have to do with me?
I think there are a few key takeaways that everyone can relate to.
Yeah, what are they?
First off, I think this story really highlights the power of creative problem solving.
Okay, in what way?
Well, Amazon saw a need, and they didn't overthink it.
Right.
They used what they had in a really practical and innovative way.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one.
Exactly.
Right.
And second, this initiative challenges us to think differently about corporate social responsibility.
How so?
It's not just about philanthropy or charity anymore.
Okay.
It's about weaving social impact into the fabric of your business practices.
So it's about companies using their strengths and resources to make a positive difference.
Exactly. And the third takeaway is that doing good can actually be good for business.
Okay, explain that one.
Well, by genuinely connecting with the community and addressing a real need,
Yeah.
Amazon is boosting their brand reputation and building trust with consumers.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Now imagine if this model was applied on a much larger scale. What if other companies with huge distribution networks followed Amazon's lead?
Like furniture companies donating slightly imperfect items to shelters, or tech companies repurposing old computers for educational purposes.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless.
And it's not limited to just physical resources either.
Right.
Companies can use their expertise, their networks, their platforms
All of it.
to support social causes in so many different ways.
It's all about looking beyond the obvious and finding those hidden opportunities to make a real impact.
Which brings us back to you, the listener.
Yes.
Think about your own community for a second. What are some of the challenges or unmet needs that you see around you?
And even more importantly, what unique skills or resources do you have that could potentially be used to address those needs?
Maybe you're a fantastic organizer, a master gardener, or a tech whiz.
Those are great examples.
Could you use those skills to benefit your community in some way?
This whole story isn't just about Amazon and their cardboard boxes.
Exactly.
It's about sparking a conversation about how we can all be more creative and resourceful when it comes to making a positive impact.
It's about realizing that everyone has something to contribute, no matter how small it may seem.
And it's about understanding that sometimes the most effective solutions are right there in front of us.
We just need to open our eyes and see them.
So the next time you see a company doing something innovative and socially responsible, don't just brush it off as a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Take a moment to think about it. What can you learn from it? How can you apply that same kind of thinking to your own life?
Because at the end of the day, creating a better world is a team effort.
It
It takes all of us working together, being creative, and challenging the status quo.
And that's what we've been exploring in this deep dive.
We hope it's given you some new perspectives on the role of businesses in society and your own potential to make a difference. Thanks for joining us.